Good morning. I am Steve Weber, the host of the American Gumption Morning Show, and today is a special on the road live show. So this is kind of a special show. I have Dr. Sharron Stroud with me. Hello, Dr. Sharron.
Hi, our dear Steve Weber, aka Forrest Gump.
and so I'm in the desert. Where are we at?
We're up on Desert Edge, up on the hill, overlooking my Himalayas.
Not far from Palm Springs.
Right.
And so
20 minutes, actually.
Dr. Sharron invited me to come out here, and I spent the night, and I did her live broadcast last night, and we just had a great time, and I got to go and soak in the mineral
hot springs.
The mineral hot springs, yes, and boy, did I sleep well last night. It was wonderful to have that experience. And
the trundle bed worked, right?
And the trundle bed was perfect. Yes. I dropped the iPhone underneath it, but I was able to, when my alarm went off this morning, I was able to reach down and find it because it told me where it was. And I reached down and so, yeah, very nice. And so it's been a great visit here out to the desert. And But what I want to do is before we get into our conversation with Dr. Sharron and Minnie.
Yes, here's Minnie. Say hi to folks, Minnie. You can say hi. Yeah.
Minnie's still celebrating St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, she is.
Let me just tell you a little bit about the what's been happening on the trip. So it was like 1 week ago Wednesday. It was on St. Patrick's Day when I flew out to California, spent a few days in Northern California, and then I've been in Southern California the last week or the last 4 or 5 days. And so anyway, it's just been a wonderful trip. We came out to Victoria Reynolds and I took a drive out to the desert yesterday, and we'll meet some more friends this afternoon, and then we'll head back there to Redondo tonight, and then tomorrow I leave for. I'll have to get past Vegas. I'm going to do some driving. I'm going to go past Las Vegas, tomorrow evening, spend the night somewhere along the way. Haven't figured that out yet. And then I'll end up in Salt Lake City on Saturday night, and then over to Boulder by Sunday night. And then I have 3 or 4 days planned in that area, and then off to Kansas City, but we won't worry about any of that at this point, but that's what's coming up. And so hopefully, for the plan as far as tomorrow, Victoria and I will do a live broadcast, and I'm thinking this 9 o'clock Pacific time, 12 o'clock on the East Coast time is a good time for us to do our show. For some crazy reason, I decided, I was doing it 10 to 11 on the East Coast, and that works great for me. Now that I'm on the West Coast, I have a better understanding of what I've been asking you West Coasters to do, to get up early to come on the show, and everybody's been gracious and has done it, but it's anyway, we have flexibility.
We have flexibility, and you want a certain amount of ease and grace.
Yes, and there's just no sense. It worked perfect at 9 o'clock. So here we are. So now let me do this. Let me go ahead and formally introduce Dr. Sharron and just tell you a little bit about her, and then we'll play the first time guest welcoming theme song, and we're not allowed to play that song more than once. So if we invite you back to the show again, we have to skip over that part. But Dr. Sharron Stroud is a woman dedicated to healing the planet. The slogan, "Think globally and act locally," would describe what she has been about for the past 45 years. 45 years of this work. That's right. We're going to get into that.
As an ordained minister.
Yes, my goodness. She is an author, professional speaker, and a spiritual leader. She has served the New Thought movement for 45 plus years as a spiritual leader. The Reverend Dr. Sharron Stroud received her ministerial degree at the Ernest Holmes College in Los Angeles, and she was the first woman to serve as president of Ernest Holmes College. Dr. Sharron Stroud is an inspirational lecturer and teacher who has shared her wisdom all over the world. There was a whole list, like it would have taken another 5 minutes to read all the places that the original bio. I had to cut them out, but let's just say all over the world. We'll leave it at that. Her greatest commitment is to the transformation of the planet and world peace. That's a big commitment, but we're honored that and grateful that you're doing that. So thank you. So Dr. Sharron, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show.
It's a joy and a pleasure to be here. And Steve is such a wonderful presence. And energy, and it's just been a delight. We knew each other through Facebook, obviously, and then when we meet face to face one another, it's not a first time meeting. If there's resonance within our heart center, it's not a first time meeting. It's a joyful reunion of souls who have been on the planet and walked this earth plane many lifetimes. And when that biblical scripture, in my Father's house are many mansions, I feel those are like dimensions of our unfoldment. So we've been together many lifetimes, and then we come together this lifetime to make a difference and to realize the ground of being is sacred service. It's about serving one another. And I always say to my congregation, and some people took issue with it until they really thought about it, I do this for me. And if you get something out of it, wonderful. The minute I think, oh, I'm doing it for you, I go into all I've done for them, the victim kind of martyr energy and consciousness. But when I know that I do it for myself and my spiritual growth, I'm the greatest benefactor, and everything then flows over into everyone that comes into our energy field. And when we get it, that if we keep our vibration pure and at a high frequency, that everyone and anyone who comes within our energy field is healed and uplifted in our presence. This is really how it works. We work on ourselves. So yes, we serve others, but if we're all one, we're serving ourselves, aren't we? And we are the greatest benefactors. We will never outgive God. We will never outgive the universe. And so the only cost in giving, according to the Course in Miracles, the only cost in giving is receiving.
Yeah, learning how to receive.
Yes.
I have been learning the art of allowing, and I think that's the same as receiving. And it's this trip is all about allowing it just to unfold and to happen the way it works. So.
And staying with Victoria Reynolds, what a beautiful light on the planet. And
yes.
Visiting our Joan of Angels,
yes.
And getting to see her beautiful gallery of angels, and how the universe just allows us, and I love the art of allowing, just allows us to do what God does best by means of us, because we are that experience God is having. And you are as close to God as I'm ever going to get. And I am as close to God as you are ever going to get, because that God presence is within us. We are that. And the Hindi say, I am that. And when we get it, that we are that, then there's such an opening.
In 2014, I was doing some work where I wanted to write what my beliefs were and what my core values were. And it was an exercise that took me several months to really go through, and to every day I would get up and I would work on it a little bit. And at the beginning, you did make a lot of progress, but then you just have to sit with it. But as far as the beliefs go, I wrote 2 things down that have lived with me, and the other 4 things that I wrote down at the time I don't even hardly think about, but we are all connected, and there are no coincidences.
That's right.
And they're really one and the same. We're all connected, and there are no coincidences. But it's been once that settled in, it became a lot easier.
That's right, because when we look at that, there are no coincidences, that nothing happens by chance. Everything is by right of consciousness. Mm-hmm. So all of you who have tuned in this morning, this did not happen by chance. I mean, you may have been, kind of surfing the net or whatever. No, this looks kind of interesting. No, nothing happens by chance. We have a divine appointment to be together here and now. And we have something to share on a heart level. And we were talking earlier about, we're going to take the longest journey on the planet this morning, the 18-inch journey from the head to the heart.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we've already got off track, because I was going to read the bio and play the first time guest welcoming song. And so let's do that, because we have rules here on this show.
Okay,
and so here is Dr.
Let's honor
Sharron.
the structure.
Dr. Sharron, have you ever had a marching band welcome you to a show before?
Oh, never.
Oh, come on. In 45 years of doing the work you've done, there had to be a marching band at one point.
Well, I've been in a few gay pride parades. I've been in a parade in Santa Clarita at the ministry. I found we had marching bands, but I didn't necessarily think they were just for me, but maybe they were.
Well, that one was just for you, for sure. So here, I'm going to go ahead and switch to, I'm going to put up your website, and it is the Interfaith Worldwide. Tell us about the Interfaith Worldwide.
Well, it's interesting. I was in San Diego for several years and had a huge ministry in San Diego, 3,000 people coming every week, television, radio, all the things that one does to get this message out into the world. And Terry Cole Whitaker, who wrote What You Think of Me Is None of My Business, a New York Times bestseller, was really the founding minister out here in the desert. And they were meeting at the Camelot Theater. And she was here for about a year, maybe 14 months, and called, and she said that her book, the latest book, had taken off, and that she didn't feel that she was really a good fit for the desert. Now, we have a saying in the desert, when you're on 111, it curves, and it does kind of this mystical thing where the energy of the mountains is a pinkish, and it's just gorgeous, and you make this turn. And I always say, a portal opens, we drive through it, and it closes. We're in Brigadoon. I mean, we are so insulated in the desert. I look out on my Himalayas from whence cometh my strength, right? Energetically. So when I came to Interfaith, we were, at the Camelot Theater, and my congregation is, in fact, about 90% gay. And our gay community, the ground of being is love. And our way of life is that we are all one, regardless of color, race, creed, sexual orientation. I added, and political affiliation. We are all one. The blood that courses through my veins is the same color of blood that courses through your veins. And so it's so amazing. I've been in this way of life and serving for 45 years. And I have received a lot of acknowledgement around the world, like the International Peace Prize at the African Peace Conference, from the White House, the 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards. If I stick around long enough, I'll get a third one. And my most prized, in my heart is the Palm Springs Human Rights Award. Because that oneness comes through very, very clearly, that we are all one. And so when I came, to this community and this wonderful gay community, and I love what Julian Paul Hernandez, he's our videographer, and someone asked him if he was gay, and he said, "No, I'm not that evolved." I thought that was the best response I've ever heard. I love you, Julian. And he's our videographer and a wonderful presence on the planet. So I came to do the will of he who sent me, to serve, everyone. And to acknowledge our oneness, and to take a stand for human rights. I mean, I'm a child of the 60s. I'm a flower child. I still wear wreaths of flowers in my hair on special occasions. And it was make love, not war. And that love begins with ourselves. I was raised in a violent home of domestic violence. My sister took her own life. And when you're raised in this kind of energy field, like my sister went to drugs and alcohol, I went to spirituality. And I was called, even from a little girl. I walked to Christ Community Church, and the minister's daughter's name was Sharon, with one R. And so they sort of took me under their wing. And I just loved, reading all about Jesus and the disciples. And I went home, and my father always promised to make us a playhouse, and he got as far as a sandbox. So I'm like, 10 or 11 years old. So I take the sandbox, I turn it on its side. And in those days, they used to give calendars that had the apostles and Mary and everybody, Joseph was on it. So I took and I cut out all the pictures, and I put it on the side that was facing the dirt. So it'd be a beautiful pulpit. I gave my first sermon at 11 years old, and I invited all the neighborhood kids. And everyone who listened afterward, our Holy Communion was peanut brittle, because that's all we had in the house. It was my mother's favorite. And they received peanut brittle. But Jimmy Rose would interrupt my sermon. So I was very conditional on those days. And Jimmy never got any peanut brittle if he interrupted me. I said, I've evolved, but don't ever think you're gonna interrupt my talk, but I'll still give you some peanut brittle, right? So that, when we think about our destiny, and I was sharing last night at our Wednesday Night Live, Steve was my guest last night, that my mother named me after the Rose of Sharon in the Song of Solomon. And when she was still pregnant with me, dedicated her child, she thought it was a hymn, to the Lord's, she said, the Lord's work. Mm. So energetically, we come in with a destiny. We're drawn to that destiny. I mean, did you think you'd be sitting on a bench at the Bubba Shrimp restaurant?
Right, nope.
Philosophizing this wonderful, authentic Gumption energy to all those that sat with you and have the human experience and the compassion and the joy.
Yeah. No, it just happened. It wasn't something I planned at all. And that's it. We have this, there's a line in the movie. It's when Forrest asks, who's right, Lieutenant Dan or Mama? Do we all have a destiny, our own destiny, or are we all just floating around accidental like on a breeze? And then he says, I think it's a little bit of both. And that accidental like on a breeze is the randomness and the choices that all of us are all making. And yet the destiny is probably from the inner soul that we come into this lifetime
on the breeze. I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love
accidental
that.
Like are we floating around accidental like on a breeze?
Yeah, right. And sometimes it appears that it is random, but I feel on a very deep level that there is that destiny calling us, and that we go through a lot of interesting experiences. Remember, the ancient Chinese never cursed anyone. They only wished them an interesting life. Mm. And I've had a very interesting life, and I'm sure we all have our journeys and our stories of how interesting it really can be. So yes, we come in with this destiny, and we have our experiences, and we have free will.
Last year changed everything for all of us, and many of us are looking at it like it's a good change, and yet it's also been so disruptive, and
yes.
And many have had plans or had lives that were radically and massively interrupted and disrupted. What happened in your particular case? Why don't you share the story of what you've done? Because you didn't plan to do what you're doing today, and yet it worked out pretty well for you.
It did. It's interesting. We were meeting at the Lieberman Chapel, which is located in Palm Springs, and Temple Isaiah, a beautiful chapel seating 250, and the stained glass and the energy, just a beautiful, beautiful setting. And we were meeting there for a couple of years. And then when the lockdown occurred and the pandemic went into full swing, Reverend Prince Fleet Easton, who is one of my assistant ministers now, he was ordained in November with our Joan of Angels. We came into my Rose of Sharon sanctuary here at Desert Crest Country Club, which is a 75-year-old modular home community with the minerals. And I actually, when I realized I was going to need to move from my home in Palm Springs, that I was there almost about 18 years, in a home that I loved, I had rehabbed. I mean, it was just absolutely beautiful. And the property taxes went to $10,000 from $3,000, and I had mortgaged the house to keep our ministry doors open. And so, the mortgage went up, and I looked at it and I just thought, all right, what is it that I love about the Coachella Valley? And it was the minerals. And I was at Two Bunch Palms quite a bit, and those minerals. And so I just went within, and I had a friend take me to every single mobile home park, modular homes, you name it. And I found this home that's on 2 lots with a huge courtyard where I had my, it's like, 8 feet tall stained glass installed from my other home. And I'm saying it was not, I'd had major back surgery 12 weeks before I moved. So, this was not something I really envisioned in my 70s, at 75, that I would be doing, right? And yet I just kept surrendering. And I had, angels show up at the door from an electrician that needed to do some work, and she showed up. She was toothless. She had tattoos from head to toe when she showed up at the door. And I thought, this is who God sent me. And thank you, Father, Mother, God. And let me tell you, she brought her dad in. They got me unpacked. He installed the stained glass, all of my light fixtures. He could even do the computer. He installed and did everything. And I was, putting ice packs on my back because I couldn't lift over 5 pounds because of the major back surgery. And I'm in great shape. I'm up in those mineral hot springs every day swimming. So I feel really, really blessed. I will be 77 in July. And so I look at some of those people that think that they are so old. They're younger than me. And yet it's all about mindset. The chronology really doesn't have a whole lot to do with where we are at any given moment. So we kicked in Rose of Sharon Sanctuary, doing our Sunday services. My Wednesday Night Live I was already doing here. We used to rent a facility for Wednesday Night Live. But the Sunday services, Fleet, has a beautiful voice. He's an award-winning vocalist. And he too, we both have our stars on the Palm Springs Walk of Stars. And he's a joy. So we just jumped in, and we discovered that we're actually making a greater difference online because more people are exposed to our message. This, remember, is a universal message of oneness. It's life transforming. And when we really understand the cause and effect relationship in the universe, that trained thought is far more powerful than untrained thought. And that when we direct the energy, then we're not bouncing around the universe.
Floating around accidental like on a breeze.
Exactly. We're directing the energy. And we are co-creators with, I don't know what really moves you about your higher power, what you call it, but I call it God. And that works for me. But it doesn't matter what you call it. God, Father, Mother, Buddha, Brahman, Allah, it doesn't matter. But to acknowledge that which is within us is greater than that which resides in the world. So what we've discovered, Steve, is that we're reaching a wider audience. Our message is moving through these waves of light, touching lives. And so we've decided to continue our online ministry this Palm Sunday. And if anyone is listening from the Coachella Valley, I have opened the Rose of Sharon Sanctuary out in the courtyard. And every Palm Sunday, I do a christening service. Each person, I buy, a couple of dozen of roses, and all multicolored, and whatever you resonate to, you choose your rose. And then I have holy water from when I was in Glastonbury, England, at the Chalice Well. And then my daughter brought me back some from Fatima, and I've mixed all this holy water together, and I save it in the fridge for the following year. And I do a christening service to recommit to our spiritual life. So it's like, it's rebirth, it's spring, it's the energy of light. The days are now longer, the flowers are blooming. Energetically, we can feel something going on.
So back in the 70s, you are in San Diego, and you have this, the beginning of this, what becomes a very large ministry.
Yes.
But it was kind of like that, the traditional classic way of doing it. The message was more, in the New Thought leadership, it was more encompassing than a one specific religion goes. All are welcome. The message is more of a universal message. And then you come to the desert and, create something similar, a large ministry here. But then as time changes and evolves, and then finally last year, or just 1 year ago, the realization that it's time to take this online. And that is really the direction that you're going. And isn't it interesting how it just keeps evolving and changing? The message doesn't change.
It doesn't.
But the way to deliver the message
The form
has to change. Otherwise, the people won't hear it.
That's right. The form of it changes. This is, I feel, the future communication.
Mm-hmm.
And it is wonderful that when we connect, like Palm Sunday and Easter, we'll have here, and we'll join together, and we'll break bread together, and we'll have that, wonderful connection, which we love. But as far as this message and my work is going to be through the airwaves. Yeah. And I'm very clear on that. And 45 years of doing it one way. And then, of course, Julian always came every Sunday for over 10 years. And you can see my talks on YouTube that Julian uploads every single week. I've got years and years of YouTube, about 20 years. And that this message still unfolds, and that those that couldn't come, they were so grateful that they could have an experience of it on the replay. So this, when we think about, we watch Netflix, we watch Prime, we go and we watch these movies and documentaries. This isn't any different. This is a life transforming message that opens our heart and allows us to be in the world, but of a higher vibratory frequency, and to vibrate at that frequency of love. I mean, that's what we all attain to. And to heal our old issues, and to realize that no one's responsible for our good. We don't need to look outside of ourselves and say, well, they did this to me, that, and they may have, but you know what? Like I said last night, whenever I've felt like I got the divine boot, I've always landed on higher ground, that these energies are catalysts to catapult us to the next level, so that we do land on higher ground. And I know Fleet said that in his life, he'd been very bullied. And yet those bullies, he goes, I wonder what they're doing now, right? And look at where I am. But they were like a catalyst to really catapult him forward. And sometimes the best transportation is a leap of faith. Yes. Right.
So I just want to acknowledge the beautiful home that I've been staying in and visiting, and the what do you call your garden?
The courtyard.
The courtyard with the stained glass, and you know, it seats about 30 people, so it's not a huge facility, intimate. But it's intimate, and it's being broadcast when they have these live events.
Yes.
It's also being broadcast out, so it's not just going to be like these 30 people. It's going to be you know, dozens or hundreds or thousands of people.
That's right.
As we do this work. So yeah, so we met through Spirituality Gone Wild, through Joan,
Debbie Garcia.
Debbie Garcia, of course, is the founder of Spirituality Gone Wild, and she's the one who brought us all together. You and I meet, and we. You're right. We had this instant energy connection. I'm only learning about the past lives. I was told that we just incarnate one time into a life, and I was like, well, how's that? Boring. How does that work? Where like where was the soul? What was the soul doing before? How did it suddenly appear? But then it's eternal, and so anyway, I'm opening up to possibilities that, oh, okay, great. This is a different way of thinking, and it's allowing for more understanding and possibilities and growth as I go along. So the wonderful thing about this community, the Spirituality Gone Wild community, is it allows me to meet people like Dr. Sharron and Fleet and Joan as I travel around. And really the goal of American Gumption is to, you know, go out and meet these people and interview them. And up until this point, up until this trip, it's all been virtual, and that was perfectly appropriate for, you know, those last
2020,
you know, those last months. But now that I'm doing this little beta road trip, getting out, this is actually the very first kind of sit down interview. We've done a couple different versions of it, but this is the first time where I've just turned it on, and I'm in Dr. Sharron's studio and place, and so it's all great. So
it is. And I want to add that Debbie Garcia, when I moved here 2 years ago, was my first guest on Wednesday Night Live.
Oh my gosh.
She is my very first guest, and she's such a beautiful energy, and we just really love her and acknowledge her.
Yes, we do. So, well, good. So let's kind of, you know, let's do a little shifting gears here. We talked about a lot last night, but when I began really my awakening, 2009, I was calling it my year of awakening, but I'm now becoming I feel like I'm awakening every year, you know. So
you're evolving,
you know. But so it was that kind of first year where, like, it finally the light bulb went off, and I was like, okay. It really was nothing more than I can't continue doing things the way that I've been doing them. Yes. I have to do something different, and that was really that. You know, I called it the year of transformation, but it really was that first year of awakening or the first awakening along, but every year is transforming and every year is a new awakening that way. So this is a lot of fun, and meeting people, learning from people like Dr. Sharron has really been, the part that for me is fun. So I sat on the bench for all those years, and I knew that the Forrest Gump message was something special because I just saw the way people would light up and react to the character, and it just brought them joy, and it was, joy to do it. So I thought, well, what do I do? What do I do with it? And then finally, after about 10 years of trying to figure out what do I do with it, the idea of American Gumption and traveling around and meeting people,
it's a genius.
It evolved. And it's funny how, we know we're on the right path, and yet we that's really what faith is continuing that going and listening to that inner knowing, I'm on the right path, but you just don't, you don't see the results per se. You don't get the immediate feedback, and people look at you like you're crazy and they say, why don't you, forget that idea. That's not going to go anywhere. And so it does take time to evolve.
It does.
You've, I don't know, what do you say about the person who is, feels like they're, they know they have a purpose and a destiny, and yet they're struggling to look for it. What do you say to those kinds of, what do you say to get somebody how do you encourage them to keep going when they're on that path?
I think wherever we are at any given moment is appropriate. This is where we need to be. And if we're in a situation and we wish we weren't, see, that's the very energy that blocks us. Mm. So if we are on the path and we have a goal, and a sacred goal, and we want to fulfill our destiny, we don't feel that where we are at this moment is fulfilling that destiny. Actually, it is, because that we are grounding ourselves in this experience. And when we begin to love where we are, an opening appears, and then we move to the next level. Remember, life is a spiral. Life goes not backward nor tarries with yesterday. Life is a forward expression of the soul. So wherever we are at that given moment, that's where we need to be. And then when we make peace with where we are at that moment, that's when the portal opens. That's when we go up to the next rung of the spiral. And when we're in this transitional period, there's disorientation and there's feeling of doubt and all the energies on the human condition and what that brings forth. We make that revolution to the next level and we ground into it. And then we go through the same. See, life is an evolution. It's always evolving. I may have been in the ministry for 45 years, but I'm always learning. I'm interested in what people are writing in their books and quantum physics and all the things that are there for us to move to the next level. In fact, Tesla said it best. He said, if you want to know the secrets of life, you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Mm. That takes it out of the realm of personality. So if we're in an energy field and, we have considerations, we make peace with where we are at that moment and do it in love. Then that creates the opening to move to the next level. And it's like, that beautiful poem by Goethe about until one is committed, there's hesitancy, there's doubt, there's all these other things that interfere. But once you commit, all of Providence rushes in to lift you to that energy field, to lift us to where we want to be and the difference that we want to make. But the old saying, they also serve who only stand and wait. Yes, because if they are waiting with that spiritual energy and sending out peace, they also serve.
New thought leadership, that's the area that you've been working in. I'm not an expert on but I know that like the movement really began in the 19th century.
Yes.
And
well, actually, it really began with Plotinus. Mm-hmm. If we want to go back that far, Dr. Ernest Holmes took the best from all the great religions and called it religious science. And the laws of science, the revelations of religion, the opinions of philosophy, applied to human need and the aspirations of every living soul. So when he called it religious science, because when Einstein said religion without science is blind and science without religion is lame, right? That there's a cause and effect relationship in the universe. Mm-hmm. So the laws of science, the opinions of philosophy, the revelations of religion applied to human need and the aspirations of every living soul. Think about it. I mean, the revelations of all great religions is the ground of being is love. Yeah. And all great religions. And then when we come from that space, and, you know, I always have people place their hand on their heart and feel the beating of your heart. And I believe we were given a heart so we would live one moment at a time, beat by precious beat, moment by precious moment. And when we feel, you know, we're in cadence of perhaps a man, a woman does not keep pace with their companions, it is because they hear a different drummer, however measured or far away. So we're all keeping pace with our own drummer, however measured or far away.
So we won't go through that early time of it, but in the 70s and then into the 80s, something changed and women stepped forward into leadership roles. You were one of them. Louise Hay was one of them. Tell us about that time. What was going on and how did it, you know, how was it for you? And I mean, you know, but these other leaders that were around, talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I began my ministry. I founded the Santa Clarita Center for Spiritual Living 45 years ago. I was 30. And, you know, it's really interesting. I was like one of 4 ministers, female ministers. And actually in our class, though, in our graduating class, there was Peggy Bassett and there were some others that were really making a difference. And energetically, like we would go to seminars and I would go in and they would say, oh, well, the minister's wife's this way. And I go, I am the minister, you know, energy. And so it was a very different time. And a lot of times you weren't taken seriously. However, you know, I took such exception to that. And that's why I always wanted to be on the cutting edge and always evolving and growing. And this is what I love about our way of life is that we are open. And I want to know what you know, about quantum physics and the fact that you can observe something and there is an order and a balance in that energy and you can turn away and it, you know, goes into a chaotic kind of thing. I love all of that because the science is the opportunity that we have to recognize that there is an order. Order is heaven's first law. And those early days were very, very interesting. And it gave us, I think, the impetus to keep growing, to keep evolving. And, you know, it was almost like a competitive edge with the men. But I had wonderful, wonderful mentors and wonderful people in my life that really believed in me. And the Palm Springs minister, John Blaney, Reverend Dr. John Blaney, he said, you're a star in our movement. Your star is rising. You know, and so when I received my star on the Palm Springs Walk of Stars 6 years ago, I thought of his words, your star is rising. And my star says humanitarian and minister of peace. And to me, that is such, you know, it's a profound statement to realize we're all ministers of peace. Every single one of us. Every time we take higher ground, we're a minister of peace. Every time we draw the larger circle, he drew a circle that shut me out. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. We made the adjustment. So when we think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency, it takes it out of the realm of personality. Oh, he said, she said, they hurt me, blah, 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 you know, the human condition, and into, hey, we're not a vibrational match. It's not good or bad. We're just not a vibrational match. It takes it out of the realm of personality.
When I began my awakening, I had a coach and she said, consider that there is no right or wrong. There is no good or bad. And that blew my mind because I was really used to judging everything. And I had to, I just couldn't, I had to sit with that for a while until I finally went, oh, actually, this is, if we look at everything as gray instead of black and white, it's a lot simpler. and you actually, you don't even have to judge anymore.
You don't, because you begin to see the world through the heart of compassion.
Mm.
So, why judge anyone? I mean, they're where they are, and we bless them, and we know the angel of light can reveal herself, and today they can become that. I love the statement, I tear down the walls of opinion that separate my brothers and sisters from me. I set them free from the projection of myself so I may see them as they are. I will not measure them with the yardstick of yesterday, for perhaps in the night, an angel of light revealed to them what they are, and today, right now, they may be that. So the angel of light is revealing herself.
We have Sandra checking in saying good morning, and here's to dancing to our own drum blessing. So thank you, Sandra,
Wonderful.
for that. And Julian, I think, is our videographer, who is also, I'm hoping to meet you that later today, Julian, while I'm here in the desert.
Yes.
So, well, good. When I was on my own journey, I started really from a logical, and the short version of it is that at a young age I decided a couple of things that happened. One in my early teenage years and one in my early 20s, where I decided not to trust my instinct any longer, because I felt like my instinct had not been worthy or proven right. And so what happened was I still had pretty good access to my instincts, but that would just let me go into my head and my thinking and my analytical and analyzing and overanalyzing and overthinking and hesitating. And so it was like this kind of a energetic loop that I would get myself stuck in, even though I had that inner knowing that was there. I just wasn't trusting it. And so learning to retrust it became my biggest challenge. And that I feel like I've gotten a lot better at doing that. But along that path, I discovered Louise Hay and Hay House book and all of the wonderful teachers from it. And I really realized that I had been learning from a head-based thinking as opposed to a heart-based thinking. And I realized, I think the biggest thing was when I realized that, no, it's really coming from the heart. Right. And so what you're saying about the longest 15 inches? 18-inch
journey from the head to the heart, the longest journey on the planet, right?
From the head to the heart.
And Louise, she started out with this little tiny booklet, and she said she and her mother would get on the floor and they would, put the booklet together. And she said she actually financed it through a credit card, that she had like $500 on the credit card, and financed this little booklet about the relationship to the mind to the body, probable psychological causes in mind for every physical manifestation of dis-ease. And in our way of life, we don't use the S word, S-I-C-K. When I'm going through something, I acknowledge I'm going through a cleanse. This is what our body-mind responds to. So when we make a statement, I am, remember, whatever follows that creates your reality. So when people say, oh, I am tired, well, it moves the energy down to exhaustion. And then from exhaustion, I am tired moves to fatigue. From there, you're in bed. You're, experiencing S-I-C-K. When you say, I am needing a rest, I am regenerating, I am recreating my energy, our body responds, the body-mind responds to that and begins recreating. Resting allows us to renew, to restore, to rejuvenate our energy. So whatever we put after the I am, we have to be very, very conscious of. And conscious languaging is really, really key. So when we look at like the probable psychological causes in mind, and then she would have an affirmation. Louise would put a beautiful affirmation after it. And it's really interesting. She came over to my house for lunch one day, and we were in the jacuzzi. And it was the jacuzzi had all these fruit trees around it. And then I had a couple of bunny rabbits. And so when I introduced her to my bunnies, Thelma and Louise,
of course,
she laughed. I said, here's your namesake. Here's Louise, the bunny. But it was great because I was coming out of the pet shop buying dog food. And this little boy, he was a darling little boy, and he came out kind of like around a tree, and he lifted up this little lop-eared bunny, and he said, "Do you need a bunny?" And I go, "Well, gosh, maybe I do. I hadn't thought about it." And bunny was so cute. And I had this hutch that was at my home. I had bought an old adobe estate in Mount Helix. I moved from Coronado, where I raised my daughter. And so we negotiated, and for $15, I suddenly had a bunny. And as I'm just getting an opening to put the bunny in the back seat, he brings out another bunny and says, "This is her sister. They've never been apart." Oh, okay. Oh, I think this is quite a little businessman. Maybe we'll renegotiate. So for 10 more bucks, Thelma and Louise, right? So I was sharing this with Louise, and we got the biggest laugh out of it. There's, energetically, that she was so down to earth and so real and so loving and kind, and but no nonsense, no nonsense whatsoever. And she had this great place in Solana Beach, and she had bunny rabbits and chickens and amazing rose garden. I mean, just amazing. What a difference. This one woman who was raised in the South was, she said she was raised on dirt floors and had a stepfather that violated her for years. And to rise up, and she had cancer, she had a cancer healing, and to think of the multitudes of beautiful souls that she has served.
Yeah.
And is still serving. She's in the next dimension and is still serving.
Yeah.
And I absolutely just love just what we can do when we know that we're co-creators with God.
I didn't I've never met Louise, but I got to know her and her work, but she was already in her late 80s really then, and she continued on for several more years. And so what a wonderful and really she was doing this work all of her life, and yet she's at age 60 she stepped into this whole new dimension of
the largest publishing house for self-help on the planet.
Yeah. Quite incredible.
It is.
So we are, it's never too late to start. You just, some of us are late bloomers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, good. Well, what, we have just a few more minutes left. We'll wrap up. What do you see coming? People have been, it's been a challenging time. Some people have looked at it and went, wow, this is really a great reset. Mm-hmm. And others have been like, oh my gosh, what do I go and do next? I think we could probably all agree things are changing and aren't going to go back to the way they were. Where do you, what would be your hope that people take from this whole experience of the last year? What would be something that you'd offer them to encourage them to keep going into this newness that we're going into?
To live your life, to live in the present moment, and to acknowledge that whatever you are doing, and it doesn't matter. Brother Lawrence was working in the scullery. This is like in the 5th century. He looked out the window, and it was his brothers that were bringing in the wood. And he had this amazing white light experience washing the dishes in the scullery, that wherever we are, whatever we are doing, that this is a sacred time. And that we, when people demean what they do, or I'm only this, or no, what you are doing is important. What you are doing is creating energy. And what Rumi said, that he said that in the world of wrongdoing, and, where we don't acknowledge wrongdoing or right doing, there's a field and I'll meet you there. That's meeting on higher ground. Mm. And when we meet on higher ground energetically, that we're allowing our lives to unfold. I don't think we're ever going to go back to normal. I think that there has been a deepening realization within our global community of what's really important. When the pandemic first hit, remember, it hit Italy very, very hard. And what were they doing? They were on the balcony singing to each other across the balcony. I think we need to keep singing to each other, that wherever we are, whatever we are experiencing, we need to keep acknowledging one another, keep praising one another and affirming one another, acknowledging one another. And as we do this, and to me, it's really a wonderful opportunity to confirm our humanity through each other and our divinity.
People need encouragement, and it's I think American Gumption is based on that idea. I about 2 years ago, I one day was watching the news and I realized that everything they talked about had nothing to do with my life, and things that they were breathlessly telling us that were important really had nothing to do. And I realized at that moment that, why do I want to bring that energy in? Why do I want them, whoever's talking at me, to influence me and to change my energy in a way that I don't need?
I agree.
And so I thought, where are the good stories? Where are the ordinary people who are doing the real work? Why aren't they being celebrated? And then that was that moment. Really, that was the moment where that's what American Gumption has to be all about. And the simple life lessons from the movie, the feather as the opportunities, the chocolate box as the choices we make, the shoe as the journey of life, and the life chapters that we keep going through. We talked about the many life chapters you've gone through. None of them are better than the other. They were all perfect for each particular stage, and yet they were you can look back and go, well, they wouldn't work any longer.
Yes.
And so that's the evolution, that's the journey of life, and it's just constant opportunities, feathers that come into our life, and the choices, the chocolate box. We get to choose whatever. You get to choose whatever chocolate you want. You get to choose whatever life you want. And once that all made sense, life began to get a little more simpler. And now it's time to go out there and share that. And so this is like one of those on the road. This is kind of that practice before I'm actually in the RV and with the broadcast studio. One of these days, I'm going to pull right up in front here with the American Gumption bus and studio, and I'm going to say, "Come on, Dr. Sharron, come on out. We're doing an interview." And hopefully, I won't get
love
kicked.
it.
Okay,
Love
good.
it.
Well, very good. Well, I'm going to give you the last word. What would you like to share with the American Gumption audience? And, what would be your, closing thought? And maybe Minnie has something to chime in and say, too, with this.
Yes,
she's been a good girl through this.
You've been such a good girl. Yes, you have. I just want you to know that wherever you are, that this is where you need to be. And as we acknowledge in our life that this is the moment, and this is the only moment, and then it's the next moment, and then the next, but to really live in this now moment and to acknowledge that we're here not just to make a living and to be out there, but to make a difference. So wherever you are, I want you to know, acknowledge yourself, that you are making a difference, and that your energy and your light and your love are going forward and moving in waves, and everyone and anyone who comes within your energy field will be healed and uplifted in your presence, because you know who you are. And we are all created in the image and likeness of something wonderful. And it's just time that we live from that. And I mean, really live from that and know that and to be that. And so I just want you to know how special you are and unique, and the opportunity that we've had this time I'm very grateful for. And I can feel the love emanating through these airwaves.
Thank you, Dr. Sharron. That was beautiful. I'm honored to be in your home and have you here as my guest on the American Gumption Morning Show. And thank you for letting me come and broadcast from your beautiful home. So
thank you. It's just been a joy. Thank you.
Well, good. Well, folks, we're going to wrap up. I'll be coming to you with a live show tomorrow morning, probably at 9 Pacific and or 12 Eastern. That's what I'm thinking we're going to do. So I'll schedule that, and then sometime later today. And so just hopefully you'll be able to join us. I'll have Victoria Reynolds as my guest, and then after that I end up heading up towards Salt Lake City and over to Boulder. And so I'll be bringing shows to you next week from the Boulder area. Alrighty, well, that is it. We're going to close this down. We'll play the final theme song. We'll get out of here, and we'll come back and do this all again real soon.